Chapter 11. At about noon, we started out, leaving our big packs at the camp where nobody was likely to be till next year anyway, and went up the Scree Valley with just some food and first aid kits. The valley was longer than it looked. In no time at all, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun was getting that later, more golden look, and the wind was rising, and I began to think, by gosh, how are we ever going to climb that mountain tonight? I put it up to Japhie, who said, "You're right, we'll have to hurry. Why don't we just forget it and go home?" Come on, Tiger. We'll make a run up that hill and then we'll go home. The valley was long and long and long, and at the top end, it got very steep, and I began to be a little afraid of falling down. The rocks were small and it got slippery, and my ankles were in pain from yesterday's muscle strain anyway. But Morley kept walking and talking, and I noticed his tremendous endurance. Japhie took his pants off so he could look just like an Indian. I mean, stark naked, except for a jockstrap, and hiked almost a quarter mile ahead of us, sometimes waiting a while to give us time to catch up, then went on, moving fast, wanting to climb the mountain today. Morley came second, about 50 yards ahead of me all the way. I was in no hurry. Then as it got later afternoon, I went faster and decided to pass Morley and join Japhie. Now we were at about 11,000 feet, and it was cold and there was a lot of snow to the east, so we could see immense snow-capped ranges, whoo-wee levels of valley land below them. We were already practically on top of California. At one point, I had to scramble like the others, on a narrow ledge under a butt of rock, and it really scared me. The fall was 100 feet, enough to break your neck, with another little ledge letting you bounce a minute preparatory to the nice goodbye 1,000-foot drop. The wind was whipping now, yet that whole afternoon, even more than the other, was filled with old premonitions or memories, as though I'd been there before, scrambling on these rocks for purposes more ancient, more serious, more simple. We finally got to the foot of Matterhorn, where there was a most beautiful small lake unknown to the eyes of most men in this world, seen by only a handful of mountain climbers, a small lake at 11,000 some odd feet, with snow on the edges of it, and beautiful flowers and a beautiful meadow, an alpine meadow, flat and dreamy, upon which I immediately threw myself and took my shoes off. Japhie'd been there a half hour when I made it, and it was cold now, and his clothes were on again. Morley came up behind us smiling. We sat there looking up at the imminent steep scree slope of the final crag of Matterhorn. "That don't look much. We can do it," I said, glad now. "No, Ray, that's more than it looks. Do you realize that's 1,000 feet more?" "That much?" "Unless we make a run up there, double time, we'll never make it down to our camp before nightfall, and never make it down to the car at the lodge before tomorrow morning, well at midnight." "Phew, I'm tired," said Morley. "I don't think I'll try it." "Well, that's right," I said. "The whole purpose of mountain climbing to me isn't just to show off you can get to the top. It's getting out of this wild country." "Well, I'm gonna go," said Japhie. "Well, if you're going, I'm gonna go with you." "Morley?" "I don't think I can make it. I'll wait here." And that wind was strong, too strong. I felt that as soon as we'd be a few hundred feet up the slope, it might hamper our climbing. Japhie took a small pack of peanuts and raisins and said, "This will be our gasoline, boy. You ready, Ray, to make a double time run?" "Ready." What would I say to the boys in the place if I came all this way only to give up at the last minute? "It's late, so let's hurry." Japhie started walking very rapidly, and then even running sometimes, where the climb had to be to the right or left along ridges of scree. Scree is long landslides of rocks and sand, very difficult to scramble through. Always little avalanches going on. At every few steps we took, it seemed we were going higher and higher on a terrifying elevator. I gulped when I turned around to look back and see all the state of California. It would seem stretching out there in 3 directions, under huge blue skies with frightening planetary space clouds and immense vistas of distant valleys and even plateaus, and for all I knew, whole Nevadas out there. It was terrifying to look down and see Morley, a dreaming spot by the little lake, waiting for us. Oh, why didn't I stay with old Henry, I thought. I now began to be afraid to go any higher, from sheer fear of being too high. I began to be afraid of being blown away by the wind. All the nightmares I'd ever had about falling off mountains and precipitous buildings ran through my head in perfect clarity. Also, with every 20 steps we took upward, we both became completely exhausted. That's because of the high altitude. Now, Ray, said Jaffe, sitting beside me panting. So have raisins and peanuts, and you'll see what kick it gives you. And each time it gave us such a tremendous kick, we both jumped up without a word and climbed another 20-30 steps, then sat down again panting, sweating in the cold wind, high on top of the world, our noses sniffling like the noses of little boys playing late Saturday afternoon, their final little games in winter. Now the wind began to howl like the winds in movies about the Shroud of Tibet. The steepness began to be too much for me. I was afraid now to look back anymore. I peeked. I couldn't even make out Morley by the tiny lake. "Hurry it up," yelled Jaffe from 100 feet ahead. "It's getting awfully late." I looked up to the peak. It was right there. I'd be there in 5 minutes. "Only a half hour to go," yelled Jaffe. I didn't believe it. In 5 minutes of scrambling angrily upward, I fell down and looked up, and it was still just as far away. What I didn't like about that peak top was that the clouds of the world were blowing right through it like fog. Wouldn't see anything up there anyway, I muttered. Oh, why did I ever let myself into this? Jaffe was way ahead of me now. He'd left the peanuts and raisins with me. It was with a kind of lonely solemnity. Now he had decided to rush to the top if it killed him. He didn't sit down anymore. Soon he was a whole football field, 100 yards ahead of me, getting smaller. I looked back and like Lot's wife, that did it. "This is too high," I yelled to Jaffe in a panic. He didn't hear me. I raced a few more feet up and fell exhausted on my belly, slipping back just a little. "This is too high," I yelled. I was really scared. Supposing I'd start to slip back for good, these screes might start sliding anytime anyway. That damn mountain goat, Jaffe, I could see him jumping through the foggy air up ahead from rock to rock, up, just a flash of his boot bottoms. How can I keep up with a maniac like that? But with nutty desperation, I followed him. Finally, I came to a kind of ledge where I could sit at a level angle, instead of having to cling not to slip, and I nudged my whole body inside the ledge, just to hold me there tight, so the wind would not dislodge me. And I looked down and around, and I had it. "I'm staying here," I yelled to Jaffe. "Come on, Smith, only another 5 minutes. I only got 100 feet to go. I'm staying right here. It's too high." He said nothing and went on. I saw him collapse and pant and get up and make his run again. I nudged myself closer into the ledge and closed my eyes and thought, "Oh, what a life this is. Why do we have to be born in the first place, and only so we can have our poor gentle flesh laid out to such impossible horrors as huge mountains and rocks and empty space?" And with horror, I remembered the famous Zen saying, "When you get to the top of a mountain, keep climbing." The saying made my hair stand on end. It had been such cute poetry sitting in Alva's straw mats. Now it was enough to make my heart pound and my heart bleed for being born at all. In fact, when Jaffe gets to the top of that crag, he will keep climbing, the way the wind's blowing, while this old philosopher is staying right here, and I closed my eyes. Besides, I thought, rest and be kind. You don't have to prove anything. Suddenly, I heard a beautiful broken yodel of a strange musical and mystical intensity in the wind, and looked up, and it was Jaffe standing on top of Matterhorn, peak letting out his triumphant mountain-conquering, Buddha mountain-smashing song of joy. It was beautiful. It was funny, too, up here on the not-so-funny top of California and in all that rushing fog. But I had to hand it to him. The guts, the endurance, the sweat. Now the crazy human singing. Whipped cream on top of ice cream. I didn't have enough strength to answer his yodel. He ran around up there and went out of sight to investigate the little flat top of some kind, he said, that ran a few feet west and then dropped sheer back down, maybe as far as I cared, to the sawdust floors of Virginia City. It was insane. I could hear him yelling at me, but I just nudged farther into my protective nook, trembling. I looked down at the small lake where Morley was lying on his back, with a blade of grass in his mouth, and said out loud, "Now there's the karma of these three men here. Jaffe Ryder gets to his triumphant mountaintop and makes it. I almost make it and have it to give up and huddle in a bloody cave, but the smartest of them all is that poet's poet lying down there with his knees crossed to the sky, chewing on a flower, dreaming by a gurgling plage. God damn it, they'll never get me up here again.